Hugh, in your opinion, and you know more than anybody else about Portrush, and you're very modest about it, but what are the big factors that you would have considered made Portrush? What do you think?
Oh, there's a lot, actually. There's half a dozen factors that could all claim to be part of the foundation of the town, helping to establish the town. The Northern Counties Hotel.
Right, okay.
Because it's something that people all over the country remember. It was one of the best hotels in Ireland, if not the best hotel. And it was actually the very first hotel in the town in, I think it was 1828.
Okay.
And again, I can be corrected on that date. And it began life as the Antrim Arms Hotel. It was obvious that a hotel was needed because people were coming to Portrush for various reasons, and a hotel was established. And over the years, the Antrim Gardens grew in stature. It was purchased in 1882 by the railway company, which is why it became the Northern Counties, the Northern Counties Railway Company. And that they purchased it as one of, I think they had about 4 hotels perhaps altogether in the country, all very high class hotels. And the Northern Counties, I remember it in its heyday, when it was, I think the thing that we remembered about it were the coaches, the coach tours, and how I think between the Northern Counties and the Fawcetts Royal Hotel, the number of coaches that were coming into the town to serve the hotels were really cluttering up our roadways. But the Northern Counties, it remained a fine hotel until the 1960s and 1970s, when all these big hotels were gradually fading. Only the very best of them were surviving, and the Northern Counties was lapsing. I had occasion to stay in the Northern Counties.
Oh goodness!
And once or twice when I was attending a conference actually in the town, and a bedroom was provided, and the events went on until quite late, and there was a room there. And I remember Mrs. Fawcett apologising to me. Mrs. Fawcett was the wife of Jack Fawcett, who owned the hotel, and she apologised to me. She said, I'm terribly sorry, but I've given you the worst room in the hotel. And believe you me, it was. It was at the end of a corridor that was obviously, it was the only room still being used in it. The Northern Counties was gradually decaying. The Northern Counties has had its day. And sadly, it was burned to the ground in an act of arson in 1992. It was a sad way to go, but the Northern Counties has had its day. It was recreated as what is now today the Atlantic Hotel, a very fine hotel.
It is a very fine hotel. There's almost a renaissance there, isn't there?
It's hard to walk past it and not realise that it's still not still the Northern Counties. I like the Northern Counties. It's also had a swimming pool, which was open to the public. That was a big factor, because the council, in their wisdom or otherwise, never actually provided a swimming pool in the town. I think it would have been a good thing if they had done that.
Maybe they should have listened to Kelly.
Kelly told them, and they didn't listen. That's quite true. And back in the 1970s, they actually drew up a scheme for a swimming pool at Kerr Street. I remember doing the story. A swimming pool in the sun was my heading. And the Northern Counties did provide a swimming pool, which was a big...
Could you just clarify one thing for me now? We're talking about the northern counties and Mrs. Fawcett looking after you.
Mm.
What's the connection between Fawcetts Hotel and the northern counties?
Yes.
What's that connection there?
The Fawcetts Hotel and the northern counties stood side by side, and there was a certain enmity, although the northern counties was always a little bit better. It's said in the hotel that became Fawcetts Royal, was originally known simply as the Portrush Hotel. Mm-hmm. If you came to Portrush, you found that the counties, that's where you got the aristocracy.
I see.
With the state, or the archdeacons and the bishops and the people like that. If you were a commercial traveller or something like that, or a teacher or a journalist, then you went to the other hotel, which was the Portrush Hotel. It eventually was owned by Sam Fawcett, and then his son Jack, known as the Royal Hotel, Fawcett's Royal. But in the 1960s, Jack Fawcett actually bought the northern counties.
I see.
And he actually owned the two hotels. So when the counties actually was finally, when it finally disappeared, Jack was the owner just before the final conflagration.
Would it be fair to sum up, Hugh, without putting words in your mouth? Tourism was the big thing for Portrush. Really was the big thing.
Absolutely.
That put Portrush on the map.
Yes, it was originally only a fishing village.
Yeah.
It remained as such. The harbour and the railways, of course, had a huge impact. And the day of the watering place was emerging in the 1830s, 1840s. Portrush was ideally situated for that, and fortunately we had the people who saw the potential of the tourist industry.
Excellent, Hugh. I think we're going to leave it there because we've covered an awful lot of ground. Maybe we'll have another face-to-face chat and talk about other parts of the town sometime again.
Look forward to
Hugh,
it.
thank you very much for everything. Thank you.
Thank you.